I never thought a damn cube could change everything. There I was, standing in the spotlight at the National Speedcubing Championships, my fingers dancing across the colorful squares like they had 1,000 times before. 3.27 seconds. Another record, another trophy, another empty victory. The crowd cheered, but all I could think about was the eviction notice crumpled in my gym bag. My sponsorship deals were drying up faster than my bank account. Nobody wanted to invest in a 28-year-old has-been who peaked in college. Zoe Nelson does it again! The announcer's voice boomed through the convention center. I forced a smile and waved, but inside I was calculating rent money and wondering how long I could survive on ramen noodles. Meanwhile, across town in a glass tower that scraped the DC sky, Kinsley Allen was drowning in legal briefs. Her corner office overlooked the Potomac, but she hadn't noticed the sunset in months. Another merger, another $1 million deal, another step up the corporate ladder that led nowhere she actually wanted to go. Working late again? Sarah, her paralegal, poked her head through the door. When am I not? Kinsley rubbed her tired green eyes and pushed a strand of brunette hair behind her ear. Her penthouse apartment waited empty, filled with expensive furniture and zero warmth. At 32, she had everything she'd thought she wanted and nothing that actually mattered. That's when fate decided to play matchmaker on a jogging path in Rock Creek Park. I was there every morning at 7 sharp, running off the frustration of another sleepless night. The autumn air bit at my cheeks as my sneakers pounded the asphalt. That's when I saw her. Tall, elegant, running with the kind of grace that made my breath catch. Kinsley noticed me, too. The blonde with the intense blue eyes who ran like she was chasing something or running from it. Our paths crossed every morning for exactly 12 seconds. I counted. On day 7, something shifted. We passed each other at the usual spot, but this time she smiled. Not the polite runner's nod, but a real smile that reached her eyes. I nearly tripped over my own feet. Smooth, I muttered to myself, feeling heat creep up my neck despite the cool morning air. That smile haunted me through my entire workout routine back home. Who was this mysterious brunette who made my heart race faster than any speedcubing competition ever had? Neither of us knew we were about to solve the most complicated puzzle of our lives. That smile became my obsession. Day 8, 9, 10. I started bringing my speed cube to the park bench afterward, fingers working through algorithms while stealing glances down the path. Maybe she'd come back. Maybe I'd work up the nerve to say something. You're pathetic, I told myself, scrambling the cube for the 100th time. But damn if I didn't show up at 7 sharp every morning. Kinsley was having her own internal battle 3 miles away in her law office. She'd caught herself researching underground fighting leagues for what she told herself was purely professional curiosity. A client had mentioned needing legal consultation for some alternative sports venture, but the truth was messier. Find anything interesting? Sarah dropped a stack of contracts on her desk. Just due diligence. Kinsley minimized her browser window. Nothing exciting. The lie tasted bitter. Everything about her life felt like a carefully constructed fiction these days. Successful lawyer, corner office, designer suits. But she couldn't stop thinking about the blonde runner with eyes like winter sky. Week 2 changed everything. I was practicing my cross pattern when I heard familiar footsteps approaching. My heart hammered against my ribs as I pretended to focus on the cube. Impressive. Her voice was smoother than I'd imagined, with just enough rasp to make my stomach flip. I looked up to find those green eyes studying my hands. Oh, this? Just killing time. 3 by 3? She gestured at the cube. You know speed cubing? The question slipped out before I could stop myself. I know a lot of things. The corner of her mouth quirked up. I'm Kinsley. Zoe. My name felt foreign on my tongue. I see you running here every morning. And I see you sitting here afterward, looking like you're solving the mysteries of the universe. We stood there in that awkward space between strangers and something more. The morning joggers flowed around us like we were stones in a stream. Maybe I am, I said, then immediately wanted to crawl into a hole. Solving mysteries, I mean. Not the universe. That's probably above my pay grade. She laughed, and the sound hit me square in the chest. What's your fastest time? Personal best is 3.27 seconds. Her eyebrows shot up. Professional? Was. Now I'm more like professionally unemployed. The words hung between us, heavier than I'd intended. But instead of the usual pity or awkward subject change, Kinsley just nodded like she understood something about dreams that didn't pay the bills. I should get to work, she said finally. Early meeting. Right, of course. I fumbled with the cube, dropping it onto the bench. Same time tomorrow? Wouldn't miss it. She jogged away, leaving me staring after her like a lovesick teenager. I picked up my cube and realized my hands were shaking. What the hell was happening to me? The next 2 weeks fell into a rhythm I didn't want to admit I was craving. Every morning, Kinsley and I would exchange a few more words. She'd ask about my cubing techniques, I'd ask about her cases, carefully dancing around anything too personal. You're losing your damn mind, Marcus said when I called him after another morning encounter. He'd been my best friend since college, the only person who knew about my financial mess and my complete inability to talk to women I actually liked. It's not like that, I lied, reorganizing my cube collection for the 3rd time that week. Right, and I'm the Pope. Just ask her out already. Ask her what? I don't even know if she's... I trailed off, not wanting to say it out loud. Gay? Zoe. The woman spent 15 minutes yesterday explaining why your corner-cutting technique was fascinating. Trust me, straight girls don't care about cube algorithms. Meanwhile, Kinsley was having a similar conversation with Sarah over lunch at their usual spot downtown. So this mysterious park woman, Sarah said, stabbing her salad with unnecessary force. When are you actually going to do something about her? There's nothing to do. Kinsley kept her voice carefully neutral. We're just friendly. Friendly. Like how you've been Googling speedcubing videos for a week? Kinsley nearly choked on her water. You've been monitoring my browser history? I don't need to. You've been humming while you work. You never hum. That morning, everything changed, thanks to DC's unpredictable weather. I was halfway to the park when the sky opened up, rain coming down in sheets that soaked through my running gear in seconds. I sprinted for the nearest shelter, the old stone pavilion overlooking the creek. I wasn't alone. Kinsley stood pressed against the opposite wall, her brunette hair plastered to her head, designer running clothes clinging in ways that made my mouth go dry. She looked up when I burst in, and for a moment we just stared at each other like drowned cats. Well, she said, wringing water from her ponytail, this is cozy. Could be worse. I tried to sound casual while my heart performed Olympic gymnastics. Could be hail. Always the optimist. She moved closer, ostensibly to escape a leak in the roof, but suddenly we were sharing the same small, dry space. The rain drummed against stone, creating a cocoon of white noise around us. I could smell her perfume, something subtle and expensive that made me want to lean closer. Can I ask you something? Her voice was softer now, more vulnerable than I'd ever heard it. Shoot. What's it like, having something you're that good at? The question caught me off guard. Honestly, terrifying. Because what happens when you're not good enough anymore? She nodded like she understood exactly what I meant. I've been successful at everything I've ever tried. Law school, career, making money. But I can't remember the last time I felt alive. Alive how? The way you look when you're working that cube. Like nothing else in the world matters. We were standing so close now, I could count the water droplets on her eyelashes. The air between us felt electric, charged with something that had been building for weeks. Kinsley, I whispered, not even sure what I was going to say. She reached up and touched my cheek, her thumb tracing the line of my jaw. Is this crazy? Probably. But I was already leaning into her touch. When her lips met mine, soft and tentative at first, then with growing certainty, I understood why they called it falling. Because that's exactly what this was. A complete free fall into something beautiful and terrifying and absolutely inevitable. The rain kept falling, but we'd found our shelter. 3 days later, Kinsley texted me her address, a penthouse in DuPont Circle that probably cost more than I'd make in 5 years. I stood in her marble lobby, suddenly aware of my thrift store jeans and scuffed sneakers. "You came," she said when the elevator doors opened, like she'd been genuinely worried I wouldn't. "Nice place." I tried not to gawk at the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. "It's empty." She led me to the kitchen, where she'd already opened a bottle of wine. "I mean, it has furniture, but it doesn't feel like home." I accepted the glass she offered, our fingers brushing. The same electric current from the pavilion shot through me. "How long have you lived here?" 3 years. You'd think I'd have put up pictures by now. The space was beautiful but sterile, like a magazine spread where no one actually lived. We settled on her pristine white couch, and I couldn't help thinking about my cramped studio apartment with its overflowing cube collection and mismatched furniture. "Tell me something real," she said, tucking her legs under her. "Real how?" "Something you don't tell people at speedcubing competitions." I took a long sip of wine, gathering courage. I knew I was gay when I was 15. My mom found love letters I'd written to my girlfriend and shipped me off to my aunt's house until graduation. Haven't talked to my parents since. Kinsley's face softened. "I'm sorry." "Your turn." She was quiet for so long I thought she wouldn't answer. "I've been out to myself for years, but never to anyone who mattered. It's easier to date men who don't challenge anything, who fit the image everyone expects. And now? Now I'm sitting here with someone who makes me forget why I was so scared." The wine made us brave, made the space between us feel smaller. She moved closer, and I could see the flecks of gold in her green eyes. "I've been thinking about that kiss," she whispered. "Just thinking?" Her laugh was breathless. "Among other things." When she kissed me this time, there was nothing hesitant about it. Her hands tangled in my hair, and I pulled her closer until there was no space left between us. The careful control she wore like armor started to crack, revealing something raw and hungry underneath. We moved to her bedroom without breaking apart, hands exploring new territory with reverent curiosity. She whispered my name against my neck like a prayer, and I answered with touch instead of words. The city lights painted patterns across her skin as we discovered each other slowly, carefully, like we were both made of something precious that might break. Time stopped existing, and there was only her breath, her warmth, the way she made me feel like I was finally home. I woke up tangled in Egyptian cotton sheets that probably cost more than my rent. Kinsley was still asleep, her hair spread across the pillow like spilled ink. In the morning light, reality came crashing back. What the hell was I doing here? She was successful, sophisticated, probably had a 5-year plan and a retirement fund. I was broke, directionless, sleeping on a mattress on the floor. This was temporary insanity, nothing more. I slipped out quietly, gathering my clothes from the living room floor. At the elevator, I almost turned back. Almost. But what would I say? That I was falling for someone so far out of my league it wasn't even funny? That I was terrified of being another disappointment in her perfect life? The elevator doors closed on what felt like the beginning and end of everything. The next morning, I couldn't face the park. Instead, I found myself in a dive bar on the wrong side of town, staring at a flyer Marcus had shoved into my hands weeks ago. Underground Fighting Championship. Cash prizes. No questions asked. "You're insane," Marcus said when I called him. "You've never thrown a punch in your life." "I'm desperate. The championship purse is 50 grand. That's enough to get me through the next year while I figure things out." And what happens when some cage fighter turns your brain into scrambled eggs? I thought about Kinsley waking up alone, probably confused, maybe hurt. At least I'll have money for the hospital bills. The gym was exactly what you'd expect. Exposed pipes, peeling paint, and the smell of sweat and broken dreams. The trainer, a scarred woman named Rita, looked me up and down like she was pricing meat. "You sure about this, princess? Most girls your age are worried about their manicures." I'm sure. She handed me gloves that had seen better decades. 3 weeks to get you ready. Don't make me regret this. Meanwhile, Kinsley was drowning herself in work, trying not to check her phone every 5 minutes. She'd woken up to empty sheets and the lingering scent of my perfume, wondering what she'd done wrong. Earth to Kinsley. Sarah waved a contract in front of her face. The Morrison case? Right. Morrison. Kinsley forced herself to focus on the paperwork. What am I looking at? New client. Some company called Underground Entertainment LLC. They want legal consultation for expanding their sports venues. Kinsley's pen paused mid-signature. Something about the name felt familiar, but she couldn't place it. Training consumed my days like a fever. Rita worked me harder than any speedcubing competition ever had. My hands, so precise with puzzle pieces, learned to form fists. My body, built for sitting and thinking, adapted to moving and striking. You've got natural reflexes, Rita admitted, after I managed to land a decent combination on the heavy bag. But reflexes don't win fights. Heart does. I've got heart. We'll see. 2 weeks in, I made the mistake of running past our old meeting spot. The pavilion stood empty, autumn leaves gathering in the corners where we'd kissed. I almost turned around 3 times. Almost knocked on her door, almost called. Instead, I ran harder, letting the pain in my lungs distract from the ache in my chest. My first underground fight was in a warehouse that reeked of motor oil and cigarettes. The crowd was rougher than any cubing tournament. Bikers, business people looking for thrills, college kids with too much daddy's money. I stood in the makeshift ring, gloves heavy on my hands, trying not to throw up. Ladies and gentlemen, making her debut, Zoe the Cube Crusher Nelson. The nickname was Marcus's idea. I wanted to kill him. My opponent was a bartender from Arlington, who looked like she could bench press a truck. The bell rang, and instinct took over. Duck, weave, jab. Rita's training kicked in, and somehow I was still standing when the bartender hit the mat. The crowd roared. Money changed hands. I'd won my first fight, but when I looked for a familiar face in the audience, there was only disappointment. Walking to my car afterward, every muscle screaming, I realized I'd been hoping Kinsley would somehow be there, that she'd see me doing something brave and stupid and maybe understand why I'd run. But the parking lot was empty except for broken glass and regret. I sat in my beat-up Honda, hands shaking from adrenaline and something deeper. The prize money would keep me afloat for another month, but what was the point if I had no one to share the victory with? My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Saw your fight. Impressive. Coffee sometime? Elena. I stared at the message, wondering who Elena was and how she'd gotten my number. In the rearview mirror, I caught sight of a tall woman with dark hair walking away from the warehouse, but she was too far away to make out clearly. Another complication in a life that was already falling apart. 2 weeks later, I was back in the warehouse preparing for my third fight when I heard a voice that made my blood freeze. I need to review the insurance documentation for tonight's events. Kinsley. In her expensive suit, clipboard in hand, looking completely out of place among the smoke and sweat. She was talking to the promoter, all business, but I could see the disgust in her eyes as she took in the surroundings. What the hell was she doing here? I ducked behind the equipment, heart hammering. Of all the underground fighting rings in D.C., she had to walk into mine. Rita found me crouched like an idiot between the medicine balls. You know her? Rita followed my gaze to where Kinsley stood, every inch the professional lawyer. It's complicated. Complicated like she's your ex, or complicated like she's a cop? Complicated like I'm an idiot who walked away from the best thing that ever happened to me. The fight announcements started, and there was nowhere left to hide. When they called my name, I saw Kinsley's head snap up from her paperwork. Our eyes met across the warehouse, and the shock on her face hit me like a physical blow. I barely remembered the fight. My opponent was some college wrestler trying to pay for grad school, but all I could focus on was Kinsley standing frozen by the legal table, watching me trade punches with a stranger. When the bell rang and they declared me the winner, I didn't wait for congratulations. I pushed through the crowd toward the exit, but Kinsley intercepted me before I could escape. "What the hell are you doing here?" Her voice was sharp with anger and something that might have been fear. "Making money." I wiped blood from my split lip. "What's your excuse?" "This is my job. Legal consultation for underground entertainment." She gestured at the chaos around us. "I had no idea you were involved in this insanity. Now you do." I tried to walk past her, but she grabbed my arm. "You could get seriously hurt, Zoe. This isn't some game. Neither is paying rent." The words came out harsher than I intended. "Some of us don't have trust funds and corner offices." Her face went pale. "Is that what you think? That this is about money? Isn't everything?" We stared at each other in the middle of the warehouse, surrounded by people counting their winnings and planning their next bets. The space between us felt like a canyon. "You left," she said quietly. "I woke up and you were gone. No note, no explanation, nothing." "I know. Why?" Before I could answer, a new voice cut through the tension. "Zoe, there you are." Elena Diaz materialized beside us like smoke. Tall, dark-haired, with a kind of predatory grace that screamed danger. I'd seen her fight before. She was lethal. "Elena." I tried to keep my voice neutral. "Kinsley, this is Elena. Elena, Kinsley." Elena's smile was all teeth as she extended a hand to Kinsley. "The lawyer. I've heard so much about you." "Have you?" Kinsley's professional mask slipped back into place, but I caught the flash of jealousy in her eyes. "Zoe talks about you constantly." Elena moved closer to me, her hand finding my shoulder in a gesture that looked casual but felt possessive. "We've been spending a lot of time together lately." That was news to me. We'd had coffee twice and exchanged training tips, but the way Elena said it, the way she touched me, made it sound like something else entirely. "Is that so?" Kinsley's voice could have frozen hell. The air crackled with tension that had nothing to do with the fights. I felt like a bone between two very different dogs. "The championship's in 2 weeks," Elena continued, apparently oblivious to the emotional warfare happening around her. "Zoe and I are the final 2 contenders." "You're fighting each other?" Kinsley looked between us like we'd both lost our minds. "Winner takes all," Elena said. $50,000 and bragging rights. Kinsley's eyes found mine, and I saw the moment she understood. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about proving something to myself, to her, to everyone who'd ever underestimated the broke speedcuber. "I should go," Kinsley said finally, her professional composure cracking. "I have paperwork to finish." But as she turned to leave, Elena called after her. "You should come watch, see what Zoe's really capable of." The challenge in her voice was unmistakable. Kinsley paused, her back still to us, and I held my breath. "Maybe I will," she said without turning around. And then she was gone, leaving me standing with Elena and a whole lot of regret. The week leading up to the championship fight passed in a blur of training and sleepless nights. Elena kept showing up at the gym, pushing herself into my routine like she belonged there. She was skilled, I'd give her that, and attractive in an obvious way that made other fighters stare. "You're distracted," Rita said, after I missed an easy combination for the 3rd time. "Whatever's going on between you and lawyer lady, fix it before Saturday night." "There's nothing to fix." She made her position clear. Did she? Because last I checked, she was the one asking questions, not walking away. Elena appeared at my shoulder like she'd been summoned. "Problems?" "Just strategy talk," I lied. "Good. I'd hate for personal drama to affect your performance." Her smile was sharp. "Though I have to admit, I'm curious about this Kinsley. What kind of woman gets under the skin of someone as focused as you?" "The complicated kind. Complicated can be fun." Elena stepped closer, her voice dropping to something that might have been flirtation. "But predictable has its advantages too." Before I could figure out how to respond to that, my phone buzzed. "Text from Kinsley. I'll be there Saturday. Don't get yourself killed." My heart did something acrobatic in my chest. Elena read the message over my shoulder before I could stop her. Interesting, she murmured. She still cares. Championship night arrived with all the subtlety of a freight train. The warehouse was packed beyond capacity, money changing hands faster than I could track. The legal table where Kinsley usually sat was empty, and I started to think she'd changed her mind. Then I saw her, standing near the back in jeans and a leather jacket instead of her usual suit. She looked younger, more vulnerable, and absolutely stunning. Our eyes met across the crowd, and she offered a small nod that somehow meant everything. She came, Elena said, following my gaze. I wasn't sure she would. Elena, about what you said earlier. Save it for after. She was already moving toward the ring, all business now. May the best woman win. The first 2 rounds were brutal. Elena fought like a dancer, graceful, precise, deadly. I fought like someone with nothing left to lose, which wasn't far from the truth. By the 3rd round, we were both bloodied and exhausted. You're tougher than I expected, Elena panted during the break. Disappointment builds character. She laughed, actually laughed. I like you, Zoe, more than I probably should. The final round started, and Elena came at me with everything she had. I saw the punch coming but couldn't quite get out of the way. Her fist connected with my temple, and the world went sideways. I hit the mat hard, tasting blood and failure. The crowd noise faded to a distant roar as darkness crept in from the edges of my vision. Somewhere in that fading consciousness, I heard Elena's voice. Stay down, it's over. But it wasn't over, not by a long shot. I rolled away from her follow-up strike, and somehow found my feet. The warehouse spun like a nightmare carnival, but I could see Kinsley pushing through the crowd, her face white with fear. That's when everything clicked into focus. Elena came at me again, confident now, thinking I was finished. But desperation makes you stupid or brilliant, and apparently I'd chosen brilliant. I ducked under her guard and landed a combination that sent her stumbling backward. When she hit the mat and didn't get up, the referee started counting. At 10, the warehouse erupted. I'd won. $50,000 and a concussion that made the room tilt like a funhouse. I tried to find Kinsley in the celebrating crowd, but my legs had other ideas. I collapsed right there in the ring, consciousness sliding away like water through my fingers. I woke up in George Washington University Hospital with a splitting headache, and Elena sitting in the visitor's chair, looking guilty as hell. How long was I out? 6 hours. You scared the shit out of everyone. She leaned forward, her usual predatory confidence replaced by something softer. I'm sorry, I pushed too hard in that last round. You were trying to win. No, Elena shook her head. I was trying to prove something stupid. To you, to her, to myself. The truth is, you've been in love with that lawyer since the first time you mentioned her name. Before I could process that confession, the door opened and Kinsley walked in carrying coffee and looking like she hadn't slept in days. You're awake. The relief in her voice was unmistakable. The doctor said, I'll leave you two alone, Elena interrupted, standing gracefully. She paused at the foot of my bed. For what it's worth, Zoe, you deserve to win. In more ways than one. After she left, Kinsley and I stared at each other across the hospital room, like strangers trying to remember how to be friends. Why did you come? I asked finally. Because I was terrified I'd lose you before I got the chance to tell you something important. What's that? She moved closer, her hand finding mine on the hospital blanket. That I don't care about the money, or the fighting, or any of it. I care about you. Stubborn, brilliant, impossible you. When she kissed me, soft and careful of my injuries, it tasted like second chances and coming home. The concussion kept me in the hospital for 3 days, but Kinsley barely left my side. She'd commandeered the uncomfortable visitor's chair like it was her personal office, laptop balanced on her knees while she worked between checking on me. You don't have to babysit me, I said on day 2, watching her massage a crick in her neck from sleeping in that damn chair. I'm not babysitting. I'm working. She gestured at her screen. Turns out your underground fighting league has some serious legal issues. My fighting league? Well, Elena's now, technically. She approached me yesterday with a business proposition. Kinsley's smile was mischievous. Seems she wants to legitimize the whole operation, make it sanctioned and above board. That was news to me. And you're helping her? I'm helping you. The purse you won? That's just the beginning if this works out. Sanctioned fighting leagues have real money, real opportunities. Elena chose that moment to walk in carrying flowers and looking sheepish. How's the patient? Alive, no thanks to you, I said, but there was no heat in it. About that. Elena settled into the other chair, suddenly serious. I owe you both an apology. The way I acted, the things I implied, it was unprofessional. And personal? Kinsley asked pointedly. Elena laughed, but it wasn't cruel. Personal too. I was jealous, which is ridiculous since I never had a chance. Anyone with eyes could see you two were meant for each other. Were we that obvious? I asked. You fought like someone with everything to lose, Elena said. That kind of desperation only comes from love. After Elena left, Kinsley moved to sit on the edge of my bed. The afternoon light streaming through the hospital window caught the gold flecks in her green eyes. She's right, you know, Kinsley said softly. About the everything to lose part. I thought I'd lost you already. That morning I left. Was terrifying for both of us. She took my hand, careful of the IV line. I've spent my whole life being careful, Zoe. Careful with my career, my image, my heart. Then you happened. Is that good or bad? It's everything. She leaned down and kissed me, and this time there was nothing careful about it. I love you, you stubborn, impossible woman. Even if I'm broke and unemployed, especially then. Though if Elena's business plan works out, you might not be unemployed much longer. 3 weeks later, I was cleared for light activity and officially unemployed but rich. $50,000 felt like winning the lottery. But Elena's legal partnership with Kinsley felt like something bigger. Premier Fighting Championship, Elena explained over dinner at Kinsley's penthouse. Sanctioned league, professional management, real marketing. We launch with an exhibition in 6 months. And you want me as a founding fighter? I still couldn't quite believe it. I want you as a partner. 20% stake, equal say in operations. Elena's smile was genuine now, free of the predatory edge I'd grown used to. Plus, Kinsley's agreed to handle all our legal work. Sports law, Kinsley said, refilling our wine glasses. Career change number 1000, but this time it feels right. Later, after Elena left and we'd moved to Kinsley's bedroom, I lay in her arms watching the city lights paint patterns on the ceiling. Her fingers traced lazy paths across my skin, and I felt something I'd never experienced before, peace. Are you sure about this? I asked. The business partnership, the career change, us? I've never been sure about anything. She pressed a kiss to my shoulder. But I'm willing to figure it out as we go. I turned in her arms until we were face to face. I love you too, by the way. In case the concussion made me forget to mention it. I was wondering when you were going to say it back. I'm not good with words. I'm better with actions. Show me, she whispered against my lips. So I did. I showed her with kisses that tasted like wine and promise, with hands that knew her body better than any puzzle I'd ever solved. We moved together with the careful passion of people who'd almost lost each other, taking time to memorize every touch, every whispered endearment. The city hummed beyond her windows, but inside her bedroom, there was only us, and the quiet revelation that some risks were worth everything. Afterward, wrapped in Egyptian cotton and contentment, Kinsley traced the healing bruises on my ribs. No more underground fighting, she said. Promise me. Promise. Though I reserve the right to kick Elena's ass in the ring professionally. Deal, she laughed, the sound vibrating through her chest where my head rested. I love you, Zoe Nelson. I love you too, Kinsley Allen. And for the first time in my adult life, I meant it completely. 6 months later, Premier Fighting Championship's inaugural event sold out the Kennedy Center. I stood backstage in my custom gear, watching Kinsley work her magic with reporters and sponsors. She'd traded her corporate suits for sleek blazers and the title of general counsel, and damn if she didn't look perfect doing it. Nervous? Elena appeared beside me, already suited up for her own exhibition match. Terrified. I adjusted my gloves for the 100th time. This is bigger than anything I've ever done. Including solving a Rubik's Cube in under 4 seconds? Way bigger. The crowd noise filtered backstage as Elena and I prepared for our rematch. This time sanctioned, regulated, and broadcast on ESPN. No more warehouse fights or under-the-table money. We were legitimate athletes, now, with contracts and everything. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the future of women's combat sports. The announcer's voice boomed through the venue as Elena and I made our entrances. The crowd was different too. Families, business people, sports fans who'd never set foot in an underground fight. In the front row, Marcus held up a sign that read, "Cube Crusher" in glittery letters. But my eyes found Kinsley in the very important person section, looking proud and terrified in equal measure. She blew me a kiss, and suddenly I wasn't nervous anymore. The fight itself was poetry compared to our brutal warehouse encounter. We'd both learned restraint, technique, showmanship. Elena was still dangerous, but now she was also entertaining. When I caught her with a perfect combination in the second round, she went down clean and stayed down. Your winner and first premier fighting champion, Zoe Nelson. The crowd erupted as they wrapped the championship belt around my waist. But the only thing I cared about was Kinsley jumping the barrier and running toward the ring. Later, at the after-party in Kinsley's penthouse, now officially our penthouse since I'd moved in 3 months ago, I found myself standing on the balcony overlooking the city. The championship belt sat on the kitchen counter next to my collection of speedcubing trophies, looking surprisingly at home. Penny for your thoughts? Kinsley joined me at the railing, champagne flute in hand. Just thinking about how crazy this all is. A year ago, I was broke and alone, practicing cube algorithms in Rock Creek Park. And now? Now I'm a professional fighter with the most beautiful lawyer in DC as my girlfriend. Fiancé, actually. Kinsley's voice was carefully casual as she pulled a small velvet box from her pocket. If you're interested. My heart stopped. Kinsley. I know it's fast. I know we've only been together 8 months, but I also know I want to spend the rest of my life solving puzzles with you. She opened the box to reveal a ring with a diamond cut like a perfect cube. Marry me, Zoe. For once in my life, words came easily. Yes. Obviously, yes. The ring fit perfectly, catching the city lights like trapped starlight. We kissed there on the balcony, and I could taste champagne and forever on her lips. There's one more thing, Kinsley said when we finally broke apart. More surprises? I don't think my heart can take it. Elena's officially retiring from competition to focus on league management. She asked if I thought you'd be interested in helping train the next generation of fighters. Teaching? Think about it. Combining your analytical mind with your fighting skills. You could revolutionize how people approach combat sports. The idea was intriguing. Terrifying, but intriguing. What about speedcubing? What about it? You can do both. Champion fighter and cube master. Who's going to stop you? A year later, we were back at Rock Creek Park, but this time, we weren't running. We were walking slowly, Kinsley's hand in mine, both of us dressed in white. The pavilion where we'd shared our first kiss had been decorated with flowers and filled with folding chairs. Marcus served as my best man, Sarah as Kinsley's maid of honor. Elena officiated, having gotten ordained online specifically for the occasion. Do you, Zoe Nelson, take Kinsley Allen to be your wife, to love and cherish, to solve life's puzzles together? I do. And do you, Kinsley Allen, take Zoe Nelson to be your wife, through algorithms and arguments, speedcubing tournaments and championship fights? I do. Then, by the power vested in me by the Internet and the District of Columbia, I pronounce you wife and wife. When we kissed as married women, the small crowd cheered, but all I could hear was my heart beating in perfect rhythm with hers. Later, at the reception in our penthouse, I pulled out the surprise I'd been working on for months. A custom Rubik's Cube with our wedding photos on each square, solvable in exactly 3.27 seconds. The time of my personal best. For you, I said, placing it in Kinsley's hands. The most beautiful puzzle I've ever solved. She turned it over, studying our faces reflected in miniature across the colored squares. I love you, Mrs. Nelson, she whispered. I love you too, Mrs. Nelson. And as our friends and family celebrated around us, I realized I'd finally found the one puzzle that didn't need solving. It was already perfect exactly as it was.